Yes, it's another Saturday Stratos special. Welcome back to the Stratosphere. And why are we looking at a Bel Air, you ask? Well, that's a bloody good question. Well, as you know, last week, or last update at least, we went to the Sedona car show and met up with several people, not least of all Del Boy. Yes, not Del Boy's garage, but actually my friend Del, who lives here in Sedona. He's another Brit in Sedona. And we were exploring the possibilities of lifts in small garages, because David has done this. Yes, David installed a lift in his regular size garage with a regular size ceiling, which we're not quite sure the height of. It might be 8 foot, it might be 10 foot. Anyway, both his cars are around about 40 inches high, so not a problem. And the possibility of stacking the Stratos on top of the Bel Air occurred to me. It's never going to happen. Not without a roof chop, which would be really cool. But it's not going to happen. So for a few dollars more, maybe even twice the price, but we're talking about the difference between $30 and $60, some decent, properly decent mirrors for the Stratos. And yes, this is what I meant about the quality of those other mirrors that I bought for the Stratos, because I originally bought a set of these, which we eventually ended up fitting to the race car, and as you can see, they flop about, so we had to put a new hinge in there to make sure that the mirror stays where it's supposed to stay and doesn't end up dangling down the side of the door. So today's been a bit of a bad day for the Stratos project. Disappointing potential setback. Don't know how huge it is at this point. Let me tell you all about it. So yes, we got dangerously close to hitting the deadline, but not quite, as usual. For the Sedona car show, the annual Sedona car show at the airport, and there was a lot of fun stuff there. Let's have a look at that first. So Mike and Go got everything kind of to a point where we should be trying to start the motor up. We got all the electrics working, we're running off battery power, and the key and the ignition and the lights worked and the dash worked, and everything was very exciting.
Turn it on and off.
We had some issues with the fuel pump potentially not kind of kicking in with the ECU harness, and there's always an option B on that. As per the race car, just put the fuel pump on its own switch and turn it on manually. It's not a problem. So easy solution to that if the ECU is not doing what it should do. And honestly, never a bad thing to have a manual cutout on the fuel pump, right, in case of disaster. However, the overriding issue that Mike had and sensibly kind of called everything to a halt on was lack of oil pressure. Much more concerning in an initial start-up of a motor that's been rebuilt, or any motor, come to that. So we decided to call a halt to all proceedings, and we got in touch with the engine builder, Rex from Alfa Sport, who has built, well, as he says, literally over 1,000 of these Alfa motors in the past 50 years maybe. And of those 1,000 motors, I am the one in the 1,000 that this has ever happened to. He's never had this problem with any other engine that he's ever built. Lucky me. Maybe I should do the lottery this weekend, maybe that would help. So Rex went along to IDR and had a look with Mikey, and his conclusion was that the motor should be torn from the car and thoroughly inspected by him. At his cost, and it all seemed a bit drastic, and I had a separate side conversation with Mikey, and I said, well, surely we could start with stuff that doesn't involve 2 days worth of ripping the motor out and then putting it back in again. And he agreed that the first thing we should try is just to make sure the oil pump itself is actually working and not broken somewhere. Rex's response to this was that he's never seen an oil pump break in his life, in the 1,000 motors that he's built. Well, yes, but he's never seen this before in the 1,000 motors he's ever built. So let's start with the easy solution. So that's what we're going to do. It won't be until a few weeks because everyone's very busy doing other things. So we will check back on that situation later. But at the moment, the motor is intact. Whether it's 100% or not is questionable. Clearly, he's worried about plugs and things that the machinist might have not done properly, which is understandable too. So I will keep you updated. If this is disappointing for you, imagine what it feels like for me. Yes, I was hoping the car would be ready for my last birthday. Let's hope it might be ready for my next one. And we're approaching a year since it arrived in the US. Another landmark in building a replica Stratos. I have to add that Rex was very considerate of my patience. He has no idea. Given it was 3 years from Listabel and another year from IDR. Yes, I'm not known for my patience, as you will know if you watch any of my other videos on building motorbikes, etc. But in this particular instance, I have been waiting since the age of, I don't know, 12 to have a LanciaStratos in some shape or form. So another couple of months. As long as I'm still here, I don't care. I want to drive that car. That's all I want to do. That's it. Depending on how many of my videos you're watching at any one time, you may have noticed we went racing last weekend with Lucky Dog Racers this time. Not the 24 Hours of Lemons, and not Champ Car as it's now called. And we found this beauty in the pits. Yes, a very nicely prepared 164. Sadly and interestingly, and perhaps somewhat predictably, given the car was finished the night before they turned up, finished in inverted commas, yes, they had some problems, which is very sad. Been there too many times ourselves where you kind of get the car ready, you think it's ready, you take it to the circuit, and then it breaks almost instantly, and you spend the whole weekend fixing it or not, as the case may be. Anyway, these poor sods had overheating problems, and at which point they dipped the clutch, I think, and kind of coasted in, and at the same time lost all oil pressure. Interesting. So I may be in contact with them. As you now know, we have oil pressure problems ourselves with the same motor, the exact same motor. The other interesting thing about this car was that they had not used the standard ECU, but a halt ECU, which is considerably expensive. And they've already done all the mapping for that motor, so that might save some time if we have to resort to an alternative ECU. So, useful contact made, and an Alfa expert to some degree. Another useful source of information, potentially, and advice. So I'm going to leave you on the oil pressure cliffhanger, because I've been sitting on it myself for the last couple of weeks, and it's only fair that you should suffer too. I will let you know what we find out once Rex is back in action, and we get him and IDR to take a look at the oil pump at least. Let's hope it's just that. So as always, thanks for your continued interest in the LanciaStratos project, and if you haven't already subscribed, I think it's down here, and yes, encourage others to watch my lunacy.